You should always pay your accountant, especially if you've got skeletons in your closet. My buddy is an accountant. He has his own firm. His biggest clients are small to medium-sized businesses. Well, he had a client who owned 4 different clubs, bars in 2 different cities. Client was always shady, always slow on payment, etc. I was also a customer of one of the bars. They had poker game that I would play in on Thursdays. Well, one day I'm at my buddy house having a few beers and he's bitching about non-payment from a client. I ask who, he doesn't want to say. But it's really bugging him because it's a significant chunk of change. He then says the name, we'll call him Scott. I'm like, wow, Scott isn't paying you? He then says Scott is saying business is way down, and I think that's odd. I've been going to one Scott place and every Thursday is packed. My buddy looks at me and goes, really? I go, yeah, he does this new cash discount, think 15% off your tab if you pay cash. My buddy goes, really? I tell him about my experience at Scott Bar, and eventually the topic changes. A few weeks later, my buddy calls me up and says, you going to Scott's Bar to play poker? I said, yeah. He says, can I join? I go, sure. He joins, we get a few drinks in us, lose our money at poker. My house is closer, he decides to crash there. On the way over, he breaks down his theory. He thinks Scott is vastly underreporting his revenue. The reason why he suspects Scott is offering cash discount is because cash is easier to hide. He says he's going to do a deep dive on Scott's finances. My friend tells me his plan is to go all 4 of Scott's establishments, get the prices he charges at each place, pieces together how much alcohol he's buying, versus how much Scott is saying his revenue equates to. He looks up how much Scott is paying in payroll, rent, bills, etc. Keep in mind he has access to all this info, and he determines that Scott is basically using his credit card receipts plus a little bit of cash to cover his cost of his business to include rent, payroll, insurance, liquor, food, etc. However, based upon the amount of products he's selling, he's suspecting Scott is underreporting his total income by about 35%, 40%. He goes back into Scott's books even more, and he figures in the last year Scott has been underreporting his sales by 35%, 40%, but he's also been underreporting his sales by at least 20%, 25% for years on end. Simply put, there is no way Scott is going through as much product and as much alcohol as he's purchasing and having the revenue numbers that he's claiming. He's underreporting his sales to his accountant, which means he's also underreporting his earnings to the IRS. By this point, Scott owes my friend thousands of dollars that he hasn't paid. He said his total amount owed could buy a brand new motorcycle. He never gave me an exact number. My friend decides, fuck getting repayment from Scott. Let's get repayment from the IRS through the whistleblower program. He's estimating Scott's underreported his revenue by millions of dollars over the course of years. The whistleblower fees he'd earned from the IRS far outweighs the amount Scott owes him. The IRS will pay between 15–30% of what they collect. So with the assistance of a lawyer, my friend gathers all the evidence he has Scott's underreporting to the IRS, and files a whistleblower report with the IRS. During this time, my friend fires Scott as a client for non-payment. Now this part gets boring because there's a lot of legal wrangling and back and forth. This went back and forth. However, eventually the IRS comes down on Scott, and they come down hard. It's estimated that Scott underreported his income to the IRS by about $4.5 million. Now my friend never told me how much the IRS was able to recoup, but Scott's businesses are no longer his businesses, and $4.5 million would put the whistleblower reward at $675K, $1.3 million. Keep in mind it's based on what the IRS collects, not the amount that's reported. I've asked my friend how much he got in the end, and he simply says, I no longer have a mortgage, and it would have been much cheaper for Scott to just pay me.
Landscaping owner rips my friend off of $400, so my friend makes him incur $15,000 in expenses. Word of note, this is not me, but posting up here for a friend who currently resides overseas. Long story, but worth the read. A while back, my friend was selling some stuff online, and among the items was a water heater. You know, the ones you see in every community hall, church kitchen. It was in working condition. He threw it up online for $150 and got an email from a person who runs a landscaping business saying he'll give him $100 cash today. Done. 2 weeks later, he got an email saying that it's not working. Weird. So my friend offered to give a full refund or cover repair cost if it's under $100. The guy instead sent an invoice for $400 saying the repair's been done, and if my friend doesn't pay it in 48 hours, he'll send a debt collector after him. He paid it, out of fear, and emailed him the confirmation. The landscaping owner then emailed back saying, "This is the price you sometimes have to pay when selling secondhand electronics," followed by a, "Have a great day, don't let this hold you back," with a, at the end of the email. A month later, my friend was in a bar, and he overhears a girl talking about how her boss, who runs a landscaping firm, screwed over some dumbass selling a water heater. My friend said, "Oh damn, I gotta hear this. Do you mind if I join your table?" And the girl said sure, and told the story. Her boss had brought a busted water heater from a secondhand store for $25 and a working one for $100 and billed the seller for the repair for the busted one before he sold it on for $300 to some community group. My friend asked, "Who did this so I don't hire that guy to fix up my yard?" Ha 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 ha's all around. She says the company name and, lo and behold, it's on the email of the guy my friend sold the water heater to. He was the dumbass in the story. He told me he was pretty angry about it, but COVID then hit, so he had other stuff to worry about. 18 months later, he was browsing the website he originally sold the water heater on, and he saw a bunch of landscaping materials, shovels, gardening stuff, wheelbarrows, lights for working at night, drills, nail guns, some construction materials, and a generator. Now, in my friend's location, apparently, if you're selling a generator, then you need to have a warrant of fitness for it, proving that it works, it's safe, no flayed wires, ECT. Most people ignore it. And he saw that this generator is being sold by the landscaping firm. This generator, he said, just by looking at it, there was no way in hell would it have a WOF. Word of note, failure for a business to provide a WOF upon request for a generator after 2 weeks. When reported to the official departments and enforced by the court, the punishment is a hefty fine, and the courts often force the seller to refund the affected party and pay any costs that they incurred. Evil plotting music. MP3. He talked to his flatmate who agreed that they would go 50/50ths on the generator, but he would transfer the money. Now, my friend had never met the landscaping firm owner face to face when selling the water heater. He left it outside and pickup was confirmed via his security camera. And when he get there, it was clear that the owner, this old grumpy-looking man who enjoyed yelling at his employees, had emptied out his storage unit. The owner was very much, as it is, no refund, and the flatmate showed him the transfer confirmation, and they take the generator for $800. No warrant of fitness is provided. They then took it to a friend of theirs who is an electrician, and he agreed to check it and give an invoice for repairs, and to quote the friend, "It would be cheaper to buy a new generator, and to be honest, this generator shouldn't have been sold. It should have been scrapped." They also found that the main identifier number had been scratched off, but not a second number that is often recorded as well on WOFs for tracking purposes. So they got in contact with the seller telling him the cost for repair, around $5,000. He promptly tells them that he's not paying, as it is, no refund, to which they then asked, "Have you got the warrant of fitnesses for this generator?" Silence for 2 days. They followed up with another email asking for it. No response. They then ask again and get an email from him saying that he'll take it back for $800. They said no, we want the WOF, and they get no response. They emailed him every day for 2 weeks. Nothing. So they printed out the original item listing that had been screenshotted and had been archived on the website and reported him to the website, and then the government. 4 months later, my friend is in court, and the guy went up to him. He tells him that he will take back the generator for $800 and that my friend and his flatmate will be going in to tell the judge that the seller has refunded them and that they want it all dropped, and that's what's happening here, full stop, end of story. They are doing what they are told to do. My friend said no, so they went into the courtroom and it's over very quickly. The inspector the government sent out to inspect the generator stated that it was in poor condition, shouldn't have been sold, was highly unsafe, and that the seller had tried to get the generator a WOF in early 2021, but instead had been told that it was to be repaired or scrapped and that it was not to be sold. They identified it by a second number on the generator that they took down in the original attempt to get it WOF'd, which had not been scratched out like the first. The judge ordered the landscaping firm owner to refund the flatmate the $800, pay the $5,000 for repairs to the generator, and was ordered to pay a $10,000 fine, which would be given directly to my friend's flatmate as the affected party. When they left the courtroom, the owner was furious and told them that under no uncertain terms was he paying them a penny more, and that he couldn't understand what he had done to deserve such treatment. To which, my friend said, "Remember the water heater?" He gave him a very confused look. "Remember the water heater you brought for $100? Well, I do, because I sold it to you, and I know that you had a different one repaired and invoiced me for it." His jaw was on the floor, and to hit it home, he said, "It's a bitch, isn't it? When what goes around comes around, especially when it accumulated interest. You have 48 hours to pay, or a debt collector will be contacted. Remember, this is the price you sometimes have to pay when selling secondhand electronics. Have a great day, don't let this hold you back." And they left. He paid the $15,000 2 days later. My friend and the flatmate split the $10,000 50-50 as they agreed, combination of rent payments and study stuff. The generator they got repaired, and then got a WOF for it before selling it for $1,000 with a newly replaced identifier number. They then went out for a wonderful dinner and night out in town. In short, Old landscaping owner rips my friend off $400 so my friend makes him incur $15,000 in expenses.